Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Math Made Easy with Terry in 10 minutes. We're going to talk about trinomials, all right? When a is equal to 1 under factorization method. So this is the third one, this is C. So we've talked about common factors, we've talked about difference of two squares. So now we're talking about trinomials, all right? So it's very important that you do review the previous video. And if you have any question, please don't hesitate to reach out. Okay, send me an email, or if you see me around, you can just stop me. I will talk about the question you have. And also, the other one we're going to talk about as well is that I'm going to just do a quick reminder what a trinomial is, all right? Just to make sure everybody's on the same page. And also, if you've not subscribed, I don't know what you're waiting for, turn on the notification bell so that when I post new videos, you'll be the first person to know, all right? So I've already told you before that a quadratic expression has a general way of writing it as ax squared plus bx plus c. You remember this? So we've talked about this severally. So where a is the quadratic coefficient, b is the linear coefficient, and c is the constant term. So when we talk about a trinomial is an algebraic expression that has 3 non-zero terms and more than one variable in the expression, all right? So I'm going to just write it down so that in case you're writing, so that you can follow it. So we can say a trinomial. So a trinomial is an algebraic expression. It's an algebraic expression that has 3, very important, it has 3 non-zero terms. Okay. And more than one variable. And has more than one, okay? More than one variable in the expression. Okay, so a trinomial is an algebraic expression that has 3 non-zero terms and has more than one variable in the expression. So that means I can now say something like the ax squared plus bx plus c is going to be called a quadratic trinomial, okay? So it's a quadratic trinomial in X. Can you see? So because technically we are having three terms there. We have x raised to the power 2, x raised to the power 1, and technically x raised to the power 0. So remember, we can also write this. It's exactly the same thing. You can write it as ax squared plus bx to the power 1 plus cx to the power 0. So remember, anything raised to the power 0 is 1. So this is a trinomial because we have 3 non-zero terms. So we have the A represent the quadratic coefficient, okay? So we talked about this earlier. So I told you that the A is the quadratic coefficient, okay? So I'm just trying to do a quick reminder. So A is the quadratic coefficient, okay? Clean this one. So A is the quadratic coefficient. B, okay? So B is the linear coefficient. And C is the constant or the free term. Does that make sense? So any of them is fine. So we've talked about all this before. So for example, a classical example of a quadratic equation or with a trinomial. So that means we have x squared plus 3x plus 7. So now we are interested in this type of quadratic trinomial or quadratic equation. But the thing here is that the A must be equal to what? 1. So here A is 1, B is 3, and C is what? 7. Okay? So we're going to be solving questions. How do you solve questions when the A is 1? So that's what we're talking about. So we're talking about trinomials when A is equal to what? 1. So let's pick the 7 rules. How do you solve this? So there are 7 ways of solving this. Okay, or 7 steps. So the first thing you have to be sure, so you have to ensure that the coefficient of x squared, okay, the coefficient of x squared is 1. You have to be sure. So before you start, you make sure that the coefficient of x squared is 1 before you apply this. Then when you're done, number 2, you then open 2 brackets. Okay, you open 2 brackets, all right, and write the variable in each of the brackets. I'm going to explain this. I'm going to solve a question. So when you write the variable in each of the brackets. So when you're done writing the variable, it could be x, it could be depending what the variable is. The next thing then you do is that you then list all the possible products, all the possible product pairs that when you multiply them, that is going to give you the independent term or the free term. So remember we said that the C is the free term. Some textbook can call it the independent term. Okay? So there are so many names you can have for that. Some can also call it a constant. So it depends on different names. So, but you have to list all the product pairs that will result in the independent term. So that means when you multiply both of them together, you will get the independent term. So we have to then list all the possible product pairs. Okay, that will result in the independent term. So independent term, so I'm referring to the C. Is that okay? So that means that is the C. So I'm referring to the C in this case. So it's ax squared plus bx plus c. So you're looking for all the numbers that you multiply together that will give you C. Then number 4. So out of that now, out of those pairs, you now select the product pairs. Okay. You now select the product pairs from step 3. Okay. That when you add them, okay, so you select the product pairs from step 3, that when you add it, okay, or add them together, okay, it will give you the coefficient of x, the linear coefficient. So the linear coefficient of x. So that is going to give you the b. So do you remember? I told you the b is the linear coefficient, right? So you're looking for 2 numbers that you multiply that will give you c, okay? But when you add those numbers, it's going to give you what? B. That's what I'm trying to say. Then when you found those numbers, the next thing, you're going to write each of them. So you write each of the product terms. Okay, so you write each of the product terms. In the brackets. Okay, so the brackets you made from step 2. So in the brackets from step 2. Okay. So you write each of them from the bracket of step 2. So, but usually the order is not important. So you can write it in any order. Okay, so the order is not important. All right, so when you're done with that, the number 6 is that when you've written that, then you equate the first bracket. So that means at step 5, we're done with the factorization. All right. So, but usually, most time the question we want you to solve. So that means that's why you have to go to step 6 and step 7. Okay. So then you have to equate the first bracket. Okay, and second bracket. So then you equate the first bracket and the second bracket separately to be equal to what? 0. Okay, don't worry, I'm going to pick an example and I'm going to use it to explain this concept. Then when you've equated it to be 0, then number 7, which is the last part, then you have to then simplify, all right? And find the value of x. Okay, you simplify and find the value of x. Okay, and you simplify and find the value. So these are the 7 steps. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick an example. Okay, I'm going to pick an example so we can use it to solve. Let's assume I have x squared plus 5x, x squared plus 5x, okay, plus 6 is equal to 0. Okay, we have x squared plus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. So we have this question here. So what is the first thing to do? No, step 1, ensure that the coefficient of x is 1. So let's, of x squared, sorry, not x, I meant x squared. So the coefficient of x squared is 1. So let's go and check. So what is the coefficient of x squared here? If you look at this now, the coefficient of x squared here is 1. So because you see when you want to check it, so step 1, so if you want to check it, you see a is equal to 1, b is equal to 5, and c is equal to what? 6. So x squared is 1, b is 5, and c is 6. So that means because x squared is equal to 1, we can use this method to solve. Now, step 2. Step 2 says that what we need to do, we need to open 2 brackets and write the variables in each of the brackets. So that means we open 2 brackets now. So we're going to open 2 brackets. We have these 2 brackets now. The variable is x, so you put x here and you put x here. Okay? Now step 3. What does step 3 say? So step 3 says, list all the possible product pairs that will result in the independent term, which is c. Okay? So our c is equal to 6, right? So we're going to list all the possible numbers that we can multiply together, and that will give us what? 6. Let's go. So we can say 6 times 1 will give us 6. What again? Minus 6 times minus 1 will give us 6. And what can give us 6? 3 times 2 will give us 6. Minus 3 times minus 2 will give us what? 6. Are you seeing it? So now step 4. So that means for this, now these are all the possible numbers that can give us 6, okay? Now step 4 now said, we now have to select the product pairs from this step 3, that when we add them, it will give us B, all right? So let us see, what is B? Our B is equal to what? 5. So which of these product pairs from step 3 will give us 5? So let's start. We have 6 times 1, so that means we will have to check 6 plus 1. What will it give us? 7? Nope. Are you seeing it? The next one is minus 6 minus 1. So we have minus 6 plus minus 1, and that will give us what? Minus 7, because plus times minus will give us minus. So minus 6 minus 1 will give us minus 7. Nope, we're looking for 5. The next one, we have 3 and 2. So 3 plus 2, that will give us what? 5, and that's what we're looking for, okay? And that means this is the product pairs we want. But let's just, for fun of it, let's just do the last one as well. So we have minus 3 plus minus 2. So plus times minus will give you minus, right? So it's going to be minus 3 minus 2, and that will give us minus 5, and that cannot work. So that means the product pair that we're going to use is going to be 3 and 2. Are you seeing it? So 3 and 2 is the correct product pair, because 3 times 2 will give us 6, and 3 plus 2 will give us 5. Good. So we move to the next one. It now says for step 5, it now says now write down each of these product terms in the bracket from step 2. So let's go back. So step 5 now. So the bracket from step 2 is step 2, the bracket. We had x and we had what? X. Each of the product term. So that means from here, we found out that the product term that was correct was what? 3 and 2, right? Because it was 3 and 2 that gave us the answer, because 3 times 2 give you 6, 3 plus 2 will give you 5. So it's plus 3 and plus 2. So we're going to have plus 3 and plus 2. You can switch it up. The order does not matter. So when we're done with that, you now say we have to equate the first bracket and the second bracket separately to be equal to 0. Step 6. So that means we have to equate each of them to be 0. So that x plus 3, the first bracket, equal to 0, and x plus 2 is equal to 0. Step 7. Step 7 said we should now simplify and find for the value of x. So the first one, we have x plus 3 is equal to 0. Take 3 to the other side, so it'll be x will be equal to minus what? 3. That's the answer. The next one, we have x plus 2 to be equal to 0. Take 2 to the other side, so x will be equal to minus 2. So therefore, for this question, x is equal to minus 3 or what? Minus 2. And that will be the answer for that. Okay? Let me pick one more. Number 2, let's say we have a y squared minus 5y plus 4. So you can pause the video, you can solve it. Then when you solve it, you can play it back and see if you get the same answer. All right, so step 1. So we need to check. So my A here is 1. My B here is what? Minus 5. My C is equal to what? 4. Then step 2, we have to open 2 brackets and put the variable, okay? So we're going to open 2 brackets now. So step 2, open 2 brackets. So the variable here is y. I'm going to put y here. Then step 3, we have to select all the possible product pairs that will result in the independent term. All right, so that is the C. So our C, that's step 3. Our C is equal to what? 4. All right. So we're looking for numbers that we're going to multiply that is going to give us 4. Are you seeing? So we can say 2 times 2 will give us 4. Minus 2 times minus 2 will give us 4. 4 times 1 will give us 4. Minus 4 times minus 1 will give us 4. So you can use the, for those that watch my video on prime factor 3 method, you can use the prime factor 3 method as well. It can help you here as well. So now these are all the product pairs that's going to give us 4. The next one will go to step 4. So step 4 is that we have to then select the product pairs that you add that will give us the B. Does that make sense? So what is the B here? The B is minus 5. So we're going to look for the 2 numbers that we're going to add from this product pairs that will give us minus 5. So let's go. We have 2 plus 2, the first one. That will give us 4. So that is not what we need. This is not correct. The next one, minus 2 plus minus 2. So it's going to give you plus times minus will give you what? Minus, right? So it's going to be minus 2 minus 2. And that will give us minus 4. That's not what we need. The next one, 4 plus 1. And that will give us what? 4 plus 1 will give us 5. But we're looking for minus 5. So that means this is not correct. The last one is that we have minus 4 plus minus 1. Plus times minus will give us minus. So minus 4 minus 1 will give us minus 5. And that is the B, so minus 5. So that means the correct values that we're looking for here is going to be minus 4 and minus 1. So because minus 4 and minus 1 gave us the answer we're looking for. So now we will now go to step 5 now. So step 5, we know the numbers that gave us was minus 4 and minus 1. So what does step 5 says? So step 5 is that you have to write down each of these product terms in the bracket from step 2. So we have to go back to step 2. This bracket, we have y and we have y. So the first term we have there is minus 4. The second term we have there is minus 1. Okay? Then step 6. We have to equate each of them to be equal to what? 0. So equate the first bracket and equate the second bracket separately, equal to 0. So it's going to be y minus 4 is equal to 0, and y minus 1 is equal to 0. Step 7. Step 7 wants you to what? Solve each of them separately, right? And simplify. So y minus 4 is equal to 0. You take minus 4 to the other side, so therefore y will be equal to what? 4. We have y minus 1 is equal to 0. You take minus 1 to the other side, so therefore y will be equal to what? 1. Okay, so therefore the answer for this, y is equal to 4 or 1. And that will be the answer for that. All right, so I'm going to pick another question now, and maybe one more. Then we'll now go to the next concept of trinomial when a is not equal to 1. So let's look at this question. For example, we have a squared minus a minus 6 is equal to 0. All right, and you are told to solve this equation. So as the first thing you do, step 1, okay, the a is equal to 1, the b in this case is going to be what? Minus 1, and the c is what? Minus 6. So like I said, you can pause the video, you can go back, you can have a look, and you can try it as much as you can. Then you come back and see if you had the same answer like I had as well, okay? So let's go. So step 2. You open the bracket, okay? You open 2 brackets, and you put the variables inside. So that's a and what? A. Step 3, we have to look for 2 numbers that's going to give us minus 6. So because our c is equal to minus 6, so we're going to look for all the numbers that you can multiply that will give you minus 6. So let's go. We can have minus 6 times 1 will give you minus 6. 6 times minus 1 will also give you minus 6. You can have minus 3 times 2 will give you minus 6. You can also have minus 2 times 3 will give you what? Minus 6. Step 4, we then have to look for 2 numbers out of this product pairs that when we add it is going to give us the b, and our b is minus 1. So we're going to check which of these product pairs that we have that when you add them together, it will give you minus 1. So let's go. The first one we have minus 6 plus 1. That will give you what? Minus 5. Nope, that's not correct. The next one we have 6 plus minus 1. Plus times minus will give you minus. So 6 minus 1 will give you 5. 5, we're looking for minus 1. Nope, that's not correct. We have minus 3 plus 2. Minus 3 plus 2 will give you minus 1. And that is exactly what we're looking for, okay? So just for the fun of it, I'm going to do the last one. So minus 2 plus 3, and that will give us 1. But we're looking for minus 1, and that is also not correct. So that means for this to be correct, the correct product pairs is going to be minus 3 and 2. Because minus 3 and 2, when you multiply, is going to give you minus 6. And when you add it, it's going to give you minus 1. All right, so step 5. Okay, so the correct product pair is minus 3 and what? 2. So step 5, we'll go back to the step 2, the bracket we have there, and we're going to put these numbers in it. So we're going to put minus 3 and plus 2. Because it's 2, it's going to be plus 2. Now step 6, we then have to equate each of these to be equal to 0. All right, so we're going to have a minus 3 equal to 0, and a plus 2 is equal to what? 0. Step 7, we equate each of them to find the value for a. So it's going to be a minus 3 equal to 0. Take minus 3 to the other side. So a will be equal to what? 3. Then we also have a plus 2 is equal to 0. Take plus 2 to the other side. So a will be equal to minus what? 2. So for this question now, a will be equal to 3 or minus 2. All right, so that'll be that for that. So you can see this is how you solve it. And this is showing all the steps. So usually in the exam, you can jump from step 1 all the way to step 5. Do you understand? But because I'm teaching a larger audience, so that's why I have to show all the steps and my thought process as well. All right, so the next video I'm going to talk about is trinomial when a is not equal to 1, because the one we talked about is when a is equal to 1. So what happens when a is not equal to 1? Like, for instance, you have maybe something like 3x squared plus 4x minus 10. You can see in this case, a is not equal to 1. What do? How do you solve it? Okay, or you have 4x squared plus 3x plus 4 or plus 2. How do you solve it? What do? Now, because all the examples we've been solving, a has been equal to what? 1. Okay, so you can see the value of a here is 1. Okay, but the values of a here is not equal to 1. So when a is not equal to 1, how do you solve it? So we'll talk about it in the next video. All right. All right, so I'm going to see you in the next video where we talk about that. If you have any question, feel free to reach out to me and I'm going to explain it to you. Is that okay? So always remember there are the 7 steps and this only applies when a is equal to 1. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you have any question, you can send it to me, put it in the comment. And also don't forget to like and turn on the notification bell. So when I put on a new video, you'll be the first person to know. All right? Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.